Hi guys, welcome to this video for D100 Dungeon World Builder. What I've done is I've updated the sheet from the previous video. If you haven't seen the previous video, we explained setting up the hex sheet ready for you to play the World Builder expansion. Like I say, I've updated this hex sheet because I liked the idea of putting the blue colouring in to make it just a bit more visible where rivers are for you guys in the video. We got to the point where we'd set up the game. You should have been creating these hexes and generating quests, but I saved that for this video. So this video is going to be all about generating another hex. Now it follows pretty much a similar sort of process as what we did for our starting hex, but it's modified slightly because we've got potentially roads and rivers flowing into it already, and what we do is we just do we generate this position here for quest 1, and then off camera I'll do quest 2, quest 3, and then the next video we're going to and we'll actually start generating an actual quest. Okay, so this is generating a hex then, so let's find the rules for that. So here we go, generating a hex. Okay, so like before, we need to determine its terrain type. Now you roll on table T. I'll just go over this again. There is the actual information on the map key, so we can see below where it's got the name of the types of terrain, there's actually a number underneath, so it's telling us that we can roll. If we roll 1 to 8, for instance, it will be a desert and so forth. So we're going to use this a bit more than the actual previous table. This is like a shorthand version of that table. Okay, so first of all, it's generating a terrain type. So let's roll for that. So we've rolled 79. So we look up here, 79 is hills, so we've actually found some hills. So we put in the symbol here, and again the book tells you to leave a small gap underneath where you're going to put these actual icons for your terrain type. So hills is just basically 3 little circles, half circles, quarter circles. Okay, so there's the hills. And now we go ahead and we need to roll on table N for the names. So let's have a look at this. Right, so we're on table N and we need to roll the terrains type, and we've rolled 04. We look up 04 to try and get you in camera. We found witches terrain. So this is going to be witches hills. So we write that in at the top and leave a small gap at the top as well. So there we go, Witches Hills. And now let's go back. We need to see if there's an actual settlement in that terrain. So we do that again. You can either use table T. I'll show you table T again. So at table T is where you're going to be doing a lot of rolling when you're generating your hex. So you can see your terrain type are all down there, and then you just cross-reference for whether different things like settlements, where it contains a settlement, a road or a river. There's also a population value which is used more for events that you might encounter, and then there's an idea of the colour and the shading that you would apply to that hex if you was doing the full colour hexes. I'll show you an example of a sheet that I've been filling out, so you can end up with something like that. I'm not an artist, I'm not very good at drawing, so it's reasonable, but I'd imagine that some people are going to be able to do some really stunning maps with their artistic skills. Okay, so we're on settlement. So let's see the percentage chance for settlement, and again I'm going to use this sheet here. So we can see there's 30% chance that there's a settlement in that hex. So we got to roll 30 or less. We rolled 22, so there is a settlement in here, and then we roll a d6 to see which type. So on a roll of 1 to 3 it's going to be a village, on a roll of 5 to 6 it's going to be a town, and on a roll of 6 it's going to be a city. Okay, so we've rolled a 3, so it's going to be a village. So somewhere in this hex there's going to be a village, so I'm going to put the village symbol here, which is a diamond shape. So again, I've tried to make all the symbols very easy to add to your sheets so that you're not having to be some spectacular artist able to generate these maps. Okay, so the next thing is, because we've generated a settlement, we need to go ahead and find out what it's called. So we make 2 rolls for this, and we do that on table N. And the first roll is going to be the prefix column, and the second roll is going to be the suffix column. So we rolled 67. Find that on the map, on the table. 67 is quiet. Okay. And I'm going to add that, quiet. And then we use the suffix column. We've rolled 37 there. Pool, so it's quiet pool is the name that we've generated. And again, if you don't like the name of a city that you've generated, the name of a settlement that you've generated, you can roll again, because they're just cosmetic. Again, if you had a village or a city in the hex already called quiet pool, you would have to roll again. If it was on this hex sheet, if it was on another hex sheet, you wouldn't need to roll again. You can only have one settlement name per hex sheet. With names of terrain, you could have another witches, it just couldn't be another witches hills. So you could have witches swamps or witches mountains, that would be fine, but not witches hills. So if we already had a witches hills on this map sheet, we would have to have regenerated that result there. Okay, so that's the settlement all done. Now we're going to roll for our roads and rivers. So let me just take a quick drink. Sorry about that. So when you're rolling for those, they're also included on here as well. There's a note here as well. It says hills have got a 25% chance of a road, but if there's a village in there, we get to add 5%. So we get to add 5% to that 25. So on a roll of 30 or less, 25 plus 5 is 30 or less, then there's going to be a road travelling through that hex. And we've rolled 62. So on this occasion there isn't. I'm going to, in the last video we didn't generate a village, a road either, so I'm going to say that we passed that and we actually do have a road here, and that I can generate the road to show you that. Okay, so because there isn't another road flowing into this area or travelling into this area, we get to make a random roll to see which direction the road is going to be coming from. Okay, so we do that with the d6. We use the directional hex, which you can see here, but basically it's the number of edges that we started from north. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's going to be a road travelling here, and it's going to flow right to the other end, and I'm going to say it flows straight through Quiet Town, Quiet Pool. They built the village on the road. Okay, and then there's a chance that that might split. So on a roll of 1 to 4, it won't have split, it'll just be a continuous road. On a roll of 5, it will split once to another edge. On a roll of 6, it will split twice to 2 other edges. So let's see what we get. Okay, we've rolled a 4, so it didn't split. So that's the road completed. Okay, and then it's just a case of repeating the whole process again for the rivers. For hills, it's saying there's a 35% chance of a river, but because we've got a village we had 5%, so that's going to be what did I say it was? 40%. So there's a 40% chance that a river is flowing into that area. So I need to just jump in here and correct a slight mistake that we've made with that those last two tests. So we need to be, when we're making those tests for roads and rivers, we need to be aware of any roads or rivers that are flowing in from outside hexes. So in the example that we was doing there, in the Mystic Mountains, we did have a river that was flowing in to the hills that we were generating. So that does add another 10%. You can see at the bottom of the table here that it's saying it add 10% if one or more roads flows into the area, and another 10% if one or more rivers flows into the area. So in that instance we would have added another 10% to those two tests that we've just done. The chance of a road would have jumped up from 30% to 40%, and rivers would have jumped up from 40% to 50%. So I just needed to clarify that, as that was a slight error on my part. The roads are not accumulative and the rivers are not accumulative. So if you have two roads flowing in, you don't add 20%, 10% for each road. You would just add 10% for one road, and the same with the rivers. So multiple rivers don't add to that percentage chance. It's just if there is one or more that are flowing into that area. So I hope that's quite clear. Okay, we'll get back to the video. Okay, and we've rolled 40, so there is. And now we need to look at hexes that are around the outside. So we can see that already there's one river flowing in from this direction, so we're going to go ahead and draw part of a river there. If there was other rivers flowing into this area, then we would have to consider them at this stage, and I'll go through that with you now. We can look at that on a diagram. Let's have a look. So here we go, we've got a diagram here in the book. If you look at that, there's different examples written out telling you how rivers and roads connect, and we're going to just go through them. So in this instance, because there was one river connecting into this hex that we're generating, it would start there and it would just flow to the other end. But let's say there was, say, a river coming in there as well, then you would connect them two up, and that's how it would flow. It wouldn't flow to the other end, it would just flow to where the one river, if it only had one river connecting into this, it would just flow to there. Right, so because if it did have that, we would connect that up, and then we would roll for splits in the usual way. So we would roll 6, it would then split 2 more times. If it had, say, 2 rivers flowing into it, then this river, what would happen is it would flow to one of them and to the other one. And because it had split once, technically, because a river can only connect to 4 edges, any more than 4 edges, it wouldn't is unusual and it's not normally allowed. So when you're generating a river flowing through a hex, it will only flow to a maximum of 4 edges. Okay, so if it had these 2 in, then we would connect them all up. That would be 3 edges. There'd be one more edge that it could split. So you'd roll the d6 again, and unless you rolled a 6 saying that the river would have 2 splits, then it wouldn't connect up. If you rolled a 5, 1 to 5, it wouldn't connect up. So you'd have all 3 connected. It would only go to another edge if you rolled a 6. And then if we had, say, that situation where we had 1, 2, 3 rivers all flowing in, 4 rivers all flowing in, what you would do is you just connect them all up, and you wouldn't roll for splits, because that had now generated 4 edges that it had split to. Okay, and then lastly, if there was this situation where you had 5 rivers flowing into, and it's pretty unusual to get that, but if you did get that, then you would have to connect up them randomly. So you would roll for them until you'd connected up 4 of these rivers in this hex randomly. Okay, so I hope that explains it a bit. It sounds a bit complicated, but in practice you start to get to grips with how rivers and roads work. For connecting up and flowing to, roads and rivers work identically the same. Okay, so I forget now whether we rolled any splits on our river or whether we even did. So I'm going to roll again and see if we get any splits. So we don't get any splits. Okay, so now this is now going to connect up to the opposite edge. Okay, because we didn't roll any splits, and we're going to put a little bridge in over our road there, and then just to make that a bit clearer, you then shade in your river. You can do that in pencil or in coloured pencil or plain pencil, and then once you've done that, you can then shade in the whole hex if you want. I'm not shading hexes in for the purpose of doing these demonstrations, but it really does bring it to life if you do add some colour to it. The order that you should be applying your colour, if you do a colour hex, is you should be starting off with you do your roads, then you do your rivers, and then you do the shading of the actual hex background, and in that way the roads and the rivers are coloured in the correct way. Okay, so that concludes this video for generating your hexes. What we're going to do next is, in the next video which will follow on from this one, is we're going to do actually generating these quest details. So we've got a quest here, quest 1, and you might like to, I'm going to move this to a more prominent position so it's more visible, is I'm going to add that there so it's a bit more distinguishable. In our next video we're going to generate that quest and show you how they get generated on the backs of these hex sheets.